Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Part Out Loud. I'm Nuvyn.
And I'm Alex.
And we are here today with Vern Yu, President and CEO of Altagas, and this year's Male Champion Award winner at the Calgary Influential Women in Business Awards. Welcome, Vern.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here today.
Thanks for being here. You also forgot our first ever male interviewee on the podcast.
That's true. That is another milestone moment. The first man on our podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. Not the last.
Well, I'm extremely honored to be the first man on the podcast.
So, Vern, first question. Can you talk us through what leadership lessons you were forced to learn really early and how you kind of navigated those in your career?
Well, I think becoming a leader is a journey. Obviously, you start early in your career and you're just trying to figure everything out. As you grow in your career, you're asked to lead people, you're asked to lead projects, and you're given more and more responsibility, and you're asked to deliver more results. What I learned is you can't do it all by yourself. You have to rely on other people for you to be successful, for the team to be successful, and ultimately for the organization to be successful. So for that to happen, you have to make sure people understand why we're trying to do some task, how we're going to do it together, and really what are the outcomes that we're looking for. So I think clarity of the task, clarity of the potential outcomes you're trying to achieve are critical. And too often when you're an employee, you're just given some tasks to do and you don't know how it fits into the broader strategy. And I think that's where you can make yourself better by just being able to communicate fully with the team.
Painting that picture of the vision, the direction, where you're seeking to go. How has that manifested itself in some of your leadership practices, either in the creation and management of your C-suite or even managing up to the board?
Well, I think you have to be able to tell stories. We're all a collective of people trying to get ahead or trying to accomplish something. And you can give people facts and figures. You can try to explain something. But if you tell a story, people will want to follow you. They will say, well, okay, I kind of get what we're trying to do now. And it's no different in our business. I work in the energy business, and it's about providing people with the necessity of life. And if you can explain that in a story, it's much easier to follow. It's much easier to understand. So oftentimes, what I'm told, what resonates well with our board, for example, is that storytelling feature. Like, why are we talking about this? Why is it important? So that is a life lesson that I've learned that I think I hope others will follow.
Can you talk about a defining moment in your career journey, in a past experience that made you see yourself a little bit differently or redefined how you see yourself?
Well, earlier in my career, probably about 15 years ago, I had a boss who was also a mentor. And he told me, quite frankly, like, okay, you're top 1% in the room as far as understanding the problems and coming up with the analytical solutions. You're maybe lucky if you're 50th percentile in how you're relating to people. And that really struck me because he said, you're smart enough. It doesn't actually matter. You will get to some C-suite position, and maybe you can be CEO of the company I was working for at the time. But he said, if you focus on the people, if you pay attention to how you're interacting with people, you're going to get there much faster and you're going to be more successful than you would be otherwise. So that has stuck with me for many, many years. And when I run into people in my organization now who may be extremely smart and extremely talented, but don't have time for everybody in the room, I try to impart that lesson because it really helped me evolve as a leader over time.
There's this theme of mentorship that keeps coming up in many of our interviews with this year's honorees. How does mentorship take shape at Altagas?
Well, I think that is something that I found was really helpful to me. And if I hadn't had that mentorship, I would never have had the confidence to try to succeed. I would have probably settled for less and been happy with it. Um, and because I got it, I was able to overcome some of the challenges I had as a leader. And so I've really tried to strive to have that happen at AltaGas, where everyone who's on our executive team is given the opportunity to have an executive coach. So that gives you somebody to talk to about what you should be working on. What are the things that you're potentially missing in your toolkit to go further in your career? And then for people who are a little bit earlier in their career, we provide the executive as mentors to select high potential people. So people who are at the vice president level or the senior vice president level, clearly who have the ability to be in the C-suite, but need just some support and help to really understand and be self-reflective about, this is what I'm good at, this is where I need some work, and this is a potential path to unlock more.
I'm surprised to hear you say that you would not have had the confidence to pursue a higher level of leadership. So, how did you build that confidence? What was kind of like the fire?
Well, I was very lucky. When Pat Daniel retired from Enbridge, I went to say goodbye, and
Mhm.
I had only been a vice president for a handful of years. And I went into his office. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was his last day of work. And he said to me, and then I was shocked. He said, if you want to be CEO of Enbridge, you can be. And I had never even imagined that I could have been CEO. And he said to me that you have everything it takes. You just need more experience. And I was like floored. I didn't ever think that was a possibility. So I was working in finance. I said, well, maybe I could be the treasurer, or maybe I could be the CFO. And he had the foresight to tell me that, hey, you can actually be more than that.
Mhm.
And most people never get that kind of advice or feedback. So from there, I said, well, if he thinks I can do it, I should think I can do it. So what do we need to do to try to
Yeah.
make this happen?
That's great.
So you are the recipient of the Male Champion Award at the Calgary Influential Women in Business Award ceremony. And part of this honor comes with a celebration of your achievements, your professional achievements, but some of it is as a result of the impact that you've had to uplift and advance gender diversity in leadership. And certainly as I look at the AltaGas leadership team, your board, there's a strong representation of women on both your board and your leadership team. Talk to us a bit about why that is important and how have you championed gender diversity in leadership?
Well, I've championed diversity, and I've done it because I believe diversity of thought gives you the best solutions to problems. Um, it used to be you worked at a utility or you worked at an energy company and no one cared. Who cares where you get your energy? What is energy? You turn on the lights. And if the lights turn on, we're all happy. We live in a completely different world today. We live in a world where energy is highly politicized. Energy is an election issue in the United States and Canada, and it affects the quality of life that we have around the world. So now it's a consumer product. 50% of the consumers are women. 80% of the consumers globally are non-white male Caucasians. So we have to figure out as an industry and a company, what's important to our customer. And if we're talking to this little circle of people, we'll never understand what our customers want. So I believe everyone has merit, everyone's opinion matters, and then we have to figure out what to do with all those opinions to provide business solutions that work for our customers. So if you don't have women, if you don't have other underrepresented groups at the table, you're not going to make the best decisions. I believe that wholeheartedly. And quite frankly, I'm a visible minority. I know what it's like to be an underrepresented person, and some of the challenges that you have to go through when you're not from the same level of privilege that others are from.
I want to lean into a little bit about your impact on community, because I first became acquainted with you when you were wearing a different hat, and that was as champion of the Ride to Conquer Cancer. And having been fortunate to do some work with Alberta Cancer Foundation, and in fact, John Osler was the first recipient of the Male Champion Award of the Calgary Influential Women in Business Awards. And talk to me, you and John really brought the Ride to Conquer Cancer to Alberta.
Yeah, well, I have to give the credit to John. He was the chair of the Alberta Cancer Foundation at that time, and he actually was a cancer patient at that time. And I was a cyclist, and he said, "Hey, the Alberta Cancer Foundation's putting on this event. I don't know how to ride a bike. Can you make sure I can ride 200 kilometers? And will you do this event with me?" So I said, I didn't actually know that much about the Alberta Cancer Foundation. I knew my friend was ill, and if he needed my help, I was going to be happy to help him. So from that, I witnessed and participated in the first Ride to Conquer Cancer. My wife's mother had just passed away from cancer, so it was important to us as a family. And to be at the event and see 2,000 or 3,000 people trying to give back to the community, and the pain that many of these people had lived through because of how cancer had impacted their lives and their friends, family, and community, I felt like there was something bigger here that I could help with. And then John asked me the second year to be the chair of the ride. And from there, I was able to get Enbridge to be the title sponsor. And now that I've moved to Altagas, I've got another group of people who want to do this with me. So it's been an unbelievable, 18-year experience. And the fact that we as a community have raised over $110 million for cancer research has just blown my mind.
Incredible impact. Yes. So I feel like we should be recognizing you not only for your leadership at Altagas, but probably, if I say more importantly, is that okay? Your dedication to our community.
Mhm.
Well, I think I feel privileged in life. I've been given many gifts because of my business success. And when you're successful, I really think you have to give back to the community. That's just part of the deal.
Vern, what's a lesson you had to learn the hard way? Something that you couldn't find in a book or on a podcast?
That's a great question. I think the thing that I've learned is, as a leader, you're going to be wrong as many times as you're right. And you can't expect to be perfect all the time. And if you're trying to make the perfect decision every time, you and your organization is going to fail. What you have to do is be prepared that you're going to make mistakes and bad decisions, but you have to have the resilience to come back, and to come back quickly, because that's the key. Like, if you make a mistake, learn from that mistake, drive on. There's going to be another solution. There's going to be another way to tackle this. Let's not burn a whole bunch of emotional energy on the fact that we were wrong. And I tell this to my kids, you're going to lose more than you win. You're going to be wrong as often as you're right. But if you have the resiliency to keep going, that's how you're going to be successful.
So speaking of your kids, what gives you hope in the future generation of leaders that we are cultivating and empowering here in Calgary?
Well, I think what I'm cautiously optimistic that the macroeconomic business conditions have changed enough that we as Canadians recognize the importance of Calgary and the importance of the industries in Calgary. If you had asked me 5 years ago, I probably would have had a much more negative perception about that. But right now, we as Canadians are at a crossroads where the world is changing very quickly. Global trade is changing very quickly. And we have the opportunity, if we embrace it, where we can make a difference and we can grow our economy, we can grow the opportunities for our kids. And then when you have opportunity, you get to learn things. You get to do amazing, interesting things that you never would have imagined when you were in high school or university. And that's what's exciting, is that you can see all this future that's going to happen, and I can't predict what's going to happen. I couldn't have predicted when I was in university doing a chemical engineering degree that at some point in my life that I'd be all over in these global capitals of the world. I'd be on top of a offshore wind farm in the North Sea. These are just things you can't predict. It's amazing to have spent my career almost predominantly in Calgary, where I've had opportunities to travel the world and provide energy for millions of people around the world. So that's something we as Calgarians bring.
So when you talk about not being able to predict that future, and when you think about your experience as an engineering student and where you are now, what were those skills of either resiliency or being open to opportunity that kind of carried you to where you are now?
Well, a lot of things I think are critically important, but resiliency is the number one success factor in my mind, because we're all going to have adversity. Where there's going to be lots of change. There's going to be situations where you're terrified, quite frankly, in your job. And if you can accept that you're going to be wrong every once in a while, and then you're going to figure it out and you will get through it, those are the things that are going to keep you going. And I've listened to a whole bunch of podcasts and read a whole bunch of books, and it keeps coming back to me that resiliency is the key.
I do want to touch upon you being at the helm of an organization that is very multifaceted, and you have to navigate through geopolitical tensions, turmoil, upheaval in many areas. How do you, as a leader, set the tone of culture and values of an organization that has many different facets?
That's a great question. I think what drives me, and the example that I try to bring to the team, is what we do is important. We provide quality of life to our customers. So if you didn't have energy, you basically, your quality of life is terrible. So we're recording this in the beginning of February. We've had just one of the coldest spells in the Eastern Seaboard in decades. Without the energy we've provided to our customers in Washington, D.C. and the surrounding region and southeastern Michigan, many people would have froze to death. And it is something that we do that is critical. So you can't take that for granted. And you have to celebrate as a team that you're doing something that's providing value to your customers.
Yeah. Well, that perspective and that viewpoint is certainly heartwarming to hear. Looking at the provision of energy from the standpoint of you're improving quality of life. Not even improving, you're making the quality of life possible for millions of people. And that's something that should be celebrated. And I think on behalf of the team at Access, we're grateful to be providing you with this honor this year as our male champion. And thank you so much for participating on the podcast. And we look forward to, I was going to say, riding in this year's Ride to Conquer Cancer. And now I've made a public commitment that I shall do so.
I will cheer you on.
Oh, excellent.
Well, we'd love to see you on a bike, and it's an honor to get this award.
Wonderful.
Thanks for being here today, Vern.
Thank you.
Great. And thanks for joining us on The Quiet Part Out Loud. The Quiet Part Out Loud is produced by Access Connects and brought to you by, oh wait, is there a sponsorship opportunity there? Learn more at accessconnects.com.